Darkness smothered the Virginia wilderness, broken only by the distant glow of burning cities on the horizon. The air smelled of ozone and scorched metal. Captain Jack Reynolds crouched behind a fallen oak, gripping his rifle as he scanned the treeline through his night vision scope. The invasion had come without warning, silent black ships descending from the sky, blotting out the stars. An unseen enemy had struck from the void, and now Earth was burning. A soft crackle in his earpiece. Movement. 10 o'clock. Sergeant Carter's voice, steady as ever. Reynolds shifted, adjusting his aim. Between the skeletal remains of trees, tall figures moved with unnatural precision. Humanoid, but wrong. Their armor shimmered like liquid obsidian, adapting to the dim light. Their weapons pulsed with an eerie blue glow, too smooth, too advanced to belong to anything born of Earth. They were sweeping the area, methodical, ruthless. Reynolds touched his throat mic. Hold position. Let them come to us. The squad was buried deep in enemy-controlled territory. The invasion had severed communications, blacking out military coordination within hours. They had no outside support, no extraction. 5 men against an empire. A low, buzzing hum filled the air. A hovering drone drifted through the ruined forest, scanning for survivors. Corporal Hawkins pressed himself against the dirt, whispering, their tech's fast. Heat signatures, movement tracking, full-spectrum scans. Walker, the team's tech specialist, pulled a compact device from his vest, a salvaged enemy comm node, still pulsing faintly with alien energy. He twisted a dial, triggering a low-frequency burst. The drone shuddered mid-air, its optics flickering. Then, in an instant, it collapsed, its systems fried. That'll spook them, Dawson muttered, tightening his grip on his combat knife. He was right. The patrol tensed, their movements becoming sharper, alert. The leader signaled with a strange, fluid gesture, and the unit fanned out. Reynolds took a slow breath. Then, in a voice like steel, he whispered, engage. Hawkins fired first. His suppressed round cut through the night, striking the lead alien just below the helmet. The thing staggered, its body jerking unnaturally before slumping to the ground. Carter opened up next, his rifle barking short, controlled bursts. The squad moved as one, a brutal machine of efficiency. The aliens were fast, inhumanly so. One darted forward, plasma blade igniting in its grip. Dawson met it head-on, sidestepping a wild slash before driving his knife into the creature's throat. The thing let out a choked gurgle, dark ichor spilling over its armor as it collapsed. Walker knelt over one of the fallen bodies, fingers flying over the alien's wrist-mounted device. They're networked. Hive mind protocols, command-linked units. If we crack their encryption. Not now. Reynolds cut in. He scanned the battlefield. The enemy patrol was down, but more would be coming. They had to keep moving. The squad ghosted through the ruins, avoiding the open ground where enemy dropships hovered ominously. Overhead, alien aircraft screamed through the sky, hunting pockets of resistance. The war had already reached major population centers, Washington, New York, Chicago. The silence on their long-range comms told them all they needed to know. If anyone was still fighting, they were doing it without orders. They reached the remains of a highway overpass, the road above shattered from an orbital strike. Reynolds motioned for cover, his mind calculating their next move. They needed intelligence, supplies, a way to hit back. Walker crouched beside a fallen alien, prying open its helmet. The creature's face was gaunt, eyes too large, skin the color of slate. Its jaw was lined with small, twitching tendrils. Not just soldiers. Scouts. Their gear suggests forward reconnaissance. That means command isn't far. Reynolds wiped the sweat from his brow. Then we take the fight to them. Carter cracked his knuckles. About time. Hawkins glanced at the sky, watching the distant glimmer of the enemy's orbital presence. They planned for a slaughter, not a war. Reynolds nodded. Then we show them what war really looks like. The forest was eerily quiet as the Black Ops team moved deeper into the enemy's occupied zone. The ground beneath their boots was soft, spongy with moisture from recent rains, and the air tasted like fire and destruction. The alien invaders had come down like a storm, swift and relentless. They had expected Earth to fold quickly, but they hadn't accounted for the ferocity of humanity. Jack Reynolds and his men were proof of that. They were far from being an official army, but they had something the invaders did not: ingenuity, adaptability, and an unyielding will to fight. "Stay sharp," Reynolds ordered in a low growl. His eyes darted to every shadow, every rustle in the trees, scanning for threats. They couldn't afford to slip up. The aliens had begun to adjust to their tactics after the first few strikes. The element of surprise was fading fast, and they needed to stay ahead of the game. Walker, the tech wizard of the group, adjusted the device on his wrist. "I've got a faint signal. Looks like a comm relay. Should be close." "Lead the way," Reynolds said, keeping his voice calm. His mind was already calculating their next steps. Walker was the brain of the operation. If they could intercept enemy communications, maybe they could gain a foothold on this alien-controlled world. The team followed Walker as he led them to an old, abandoned power station hidden deep in the woods. It had been built as a backup generator for the local grid, long before the invasion. Now, it was a perfect place for the aliens to set up one of their comm relays. The station's concrete structure was cracked and weathered, but still sturdy enough to hold the signal that could help them turn the tide. As they approached, Hawkins moved forward to scout the area. His skill with a sniper rifle was unmatched, and his ability to blend into his surroundings made him nearly invisible. The rest of the team followed, careful not to make a sound. 2 guards at the entry point, Hawkins reported through the comms, his voice barely a whisper. "They're not expecting trouble, but we don't know how many more are inside. I'll take the one on the left." "Take him out," Reynolds ordered. "Quick and clean." With practiced precision, Hawkins raised his rifle and took a single shot. The guard crumpled to the ground, silent as a shadow. The second guard, still unaware, turned just in time to see Hawkins' hand dart from the shadows. With a quick chokehold, the guard was neutralized, body falling limply to the ground. The team moved inside. The hum of alien machinery filled the air as Walker hacked into the main terminal, fingers flying over the alien interface. The interior was cold, sterile, and almost alive with its blinking lights and flowing, organic-like wiring. Alien technology that was as beautiful as it was deadly. "Got it," Walker said, his voice tight with concentration. "I'm in." Pulling down their network map now, Carter stood guard, his heavy plasma rifle trained on the door. His eyes scanned every inch of the room, ready to engage if anything went wrong. Dawson paced around the perimeter, setting up defensive traps, just in case they were spotted. The door to the main server room hissed open, and suddenly everything changed. "Contact!" Dawson shouted, spinning around as the door burst open, and 3 aliens rushed in. Their movements were lightning fast, but the humans were faster. Carter dropped 2 with rapid fire, but the 3rd alien managed to leap into cover, returning fire with a burst of plasma. It was then that Reynolds made his move. With the precision of a predator, he dove into the fray, closing the distance in seconds. He tackled the alien to the ground, twisting its arm behind its back before silencing it with a swift shot to the chest. "Clear," Reynolds muttered, panting as he wiped the sweat from his brow. Walker cursed under his breath. "They're adapting. The comm relay's down, but they're going to know we're here now." "Doesn't matter," Reynolds replied, checking the weapons on his squad. "We hit them harder than they expect, and we do it fast." Walker nodded, his face tight with focus. "I'm tracing their next move." The relay was linked to a larger network. "I think they've got a command center in the city. If we disrupt that, we could cause a chain reaction." "Then that's where we're going next," Reynolds said. His voice was steady, calm, but there was a fire in his eyes that none of the aliens could ever understand. They made their way toward the next target, using the surrounding terrain to stay out of sight. They moved in silence, a ghostly presence that haunted the invaders, appearing where they weren't expected and vanishing before they could react. Reynolds led them through the back streets, where the remnants of humanity had fled to avoid detection. The team pushed forward. They knew they had only one chance to strike at the heart of the enemy's operation. A direct assault on the command center would be suicide, but with Walker's hacked intel, They had found a weakness in the aliens' defensive grid. Dawson, using his skills as a survivalist, led them through the tunnels below the city, a labyrinth of forgotten passageways and underground channels. They emerged at a service entrance to the command center, a fortified structure surrounded by alien patrols. Carter and Hawkins set up on opposite sides, covering the entrance, while Reynolds and Dawson approached the door. The plan was simple: one shot, one kill, then slip inside before the enemy could react. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dawson breached the door with a single well-placed charge. The explosion was silent, and the squad swept in, guns blazing. The first group of aliens didn't even know what hit them. They were dead before they could lift a weapon. Reynolds didn't slow down. The enemy was in disarray, trying to regroup as their command structure faltered. The humans had found a way to hurt them, and it was working. "We're just getting started," Reynolds said with a grim smile, as the squad continued their relentless advance. The command center was a maze of alien technology, its smooth, organic-looking walls pulsating with unnatural light. Reynolds and his team moved through the structure with lethal precision, their boots barely making a sound on the metallic floor. The hum of the ship systems was a constant reminder that they were on borrowed time. The aliens would be regrouping soon, and when they did, Earth would no longer have the advantage. "We're close," Walker said, his voice tight. He was hunched over a small device, his fingers flying over its interface as he fed the coordinates into the squad's comm system. "Their central core is just up ahead. Once we take that out, it'll disable their entire network." Reynolds nodded. "Everyone knows the plan. Hit hard, hit fast. We're in, we're out." Carter gripped his rifle tighter. "I like those odds." They rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of aliens, their sleek armor gleaming in the artificial light. The creatures were tall, their faces angular and impassive. They didn't react to the humans immediately, but the moment they registered the threat, their weapons sprang to life. Plasma beams tore through the air, and the team dove for cover. Hawkins was the first to fire. His sniper rifle cracked, sending one of the aliens sprawling to the floor in a heap of twitching limbs. Dawson and Carter followed, unleashing a volley of gunfire that tore through the remaining invaders. The aliens retaliated with ferocity, but the humans had the advantage of speed and unpredictability. The battle was short, brutal, and over before the aliens could fully react. But they had caused a delay. "Too damn close," Reynolds muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Move out. We don't have time for another fight like that." Walker led the way, his device guiding them through a narrow corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly. It wasn't just the alien technology that made the ship feel alive. It was the way everything seemed to shift around them, the walls breathing, the lights flickering. They were on a ticking clock, and every second was precious. They finally reached the core of the ship, a vast chamber filled with humming machinery and glowing orbs of energy. In the center stood an enormous control panel, its surface alive with alien symbols that twisted and flowed like liquid. This was the heart of the invasion, a nexus from which the alien empire controlled every movement, every decision. Reynolds's heart pounded in his chest as he surveyed the room. There were no more aliens in sight, but he knew better than to trust an empty room. "Get to work, Walker. We don't have much time." Walker nodded, dropping to one knee and pulling out a set of tools from his pack. "I'll need a minute to crack this thing. If I'm lucky, I can override the system from the inside." Carter scanned the room with a practiced eye. "We got company coming. There's no way we'll get out of here without a fight." "Then we fight," Reynolds said, voice hard. "Hawkins, Dawson, cover the exits. Carter, keep an eye on Walker. If they come in, we hold them off." The rest of the squad positioned themselves, each man knowing exactly where to be and what to do. Reynolds took up position near the control panel, his rifle at the ready. He could feel the tension building in his muscles, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it. They had one shot to cripple the enemy and change the course of the war. "Almost there," Walker said, his voice low as he worked. "Just a few more seconds." Reynolds took a breath and looked over at Carter. "Ready?" Carter gave a sharp nod. "Always." The door at the far end of the room suddenly slammed open, and a wave of alien soldiers rushed in. They were heavily armored, their weapons drawn and their movements synchronized. This wasn't a small patrol, it was a full assault. Reynolds cursed under his breath as the first plasma bolt sizzled past him. The team sprang into action. Carter fired first, the roar of his plasma rifle drowning out everything else. His shots hit their mark, sending 2 aliens flying back. Hawkins and Dawson opened up on the left flank, their weapons spitting fire as they kept the invaders at bay. But for every alien they took down, 2 more seemed to appear, emerging from the shadows, their glowing eyes locked on the humans. Reynolds gritted his teeth and stepped forward, firing into the crowd. The aliens didn't stop. They just kept coming. But the humans held their ground. They had no choice. "Walker!" Reynolds shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. "We need that override now." "I'm on it," Walker called back, his hands a blur as he typed commands into the alien interface. He had to hurry. They couldn't keep this up forever. Reynolds's rifle kicked in his hands, each shot another reminder of the stakes. He fired, ducked, fired again, his mind working faster than his body. He knew that if they couldn't disable the ship's core, they were dead. There was no escape. Just as an alien soldier charged toward him, Reynolds took a step forward and delivered a brutal punch to the creature's face. It collapsed in a heap, and Reynolds turned just in time to fire another round into the heart of the approaching assault squad. The explosion of the plasma blast was deafening, but it didn't slow them down. They were relentless. "Done!" Walker's voice rang out, sharp with triumph. "The core's disabled. Their network's down." For a moment, everything seemed to pause. The aliens faltered, confusion spreading among them like wildfire. Their coordination faltered, their attack losing momentum. The tide had shifted. "Time to go," Reynolds said, and the squad sprang into motion, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. They fought their way back toward the entrance, taking down the last of the alien soldiers as they retreated. They reached the extraction point just as the entire structure began to shake. The core had been overloaded. The ship was going down. Reynolds looked over at his team, their faces grim but resolute. They had done it. They had struck a blow that would be felt across the stars. The blast that followed was deafening. But for a brief moment, as they ran for cover, they knew they had won. Earth had fought back. And for once, humanity had proven that no matter how many times the invaders came, they would always be met with resistance. Always.